Gelekesa. Nugwa Gua Kwalaka, Gayukan Laka Halibu. Good evening and welcome to everybody. The Board of Education acknowledges that we are on the traditional territories of the Comox First Nation. We would like to thank them for the privilege of living on their land and the gift of working with their children. My name is Susan Leslie. We have some absences this evening. Our Vice Chair, Sarah Jane Howe, who was to be chairing tonight, has lost a loved one. So I'm stepping in. And as our board chair mentioned at the last meeting that she would not be here and able to attend the December meeting. So here you are stuck with me. And it's so lovely to see you all on this very good evening. Oh, and we have quorum. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, to open us off, we're going to adopt the agenda. Chelsea.
I would like to motion to amend the agenda. I would like to defer the Comox Valley Regional District Arena 3 request, item 9BV, in this agenda to our January 28th, 2025 regular public agenda.
Okay, do we have a seconder? Shannon? And is there any discussion on that amendment?
Yeah, it's not my intention for us to delay the matter, but I think we feel that this matter requires, I certainly feel this matter requires further discussion with a fuller, stronger board presence for us to go forward. So.
All in favor? So our agenda has been amended and we will defer that motion. Thank you. And now, do we have someone bring the motion in for the minutes?
I'll adopt the amended agenda. I'd like to adopt the amended agenda as noted. Go team.
Yes, yes. And we have a seconder for the adoption of the amended agenda, Chelsea. Excellent. Any discussion? And it's carried. Thank you. Now we'll go to the adoption of minutes. Could I have somebody make that motion, please? Shannon?
The Board of Education School District Number 71, Comox Valley adopts the November 26, 2024 regular public board meeting minutes as presented.
Christy seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Awesome, thank you. We have no unfinished business and record of in-camera meeting minutes attached to our November 26th regular in-camera. We have no board chair report this evening and no delegations. And the next, there's an open committee of the whole for information only.
No, that's just the.
This is our next meeting, January 14th. I am chairing that one. I do know that in advance. And that's at school board office. Number 9 is strategic direction, learning services, and we have a verbal report from our superintendent, Jeremy.
Well, thanks. We'll make it quick as we have our keynote Indigenous liaison leads here tonight, so we want to make sure they have lots of time. But I am struck just thinking of the welcome this evening. Here we are on a dark December day, down some trustees, but still a boardroom full of staff, partner groups, and just grateful for the collective work that we get to engage in together and the privilege of that work. I would say it's been a busy month. I don't think I would have to convince any of the staff of that fact, but I wanted to just to acknowledge just how much hustle and bustle occurs in schools at this time of year. And and really the phenomenal effort that goes into many holiday performances that also allow opportunities for community, for parents to make connections with their children's school. Our school's also filled over 600 hampers for the Sharing the Spirit hamper program. What a great accomplishment from our school community. The hampers were picked up with precision thanks to the helping hands of several volunteers from the 19-wing Comox team. Wanted to celebrate some grade 7 and 8 students from Hornby Island Community School who finished in the top 10 in the CBC Music Challenge and earned $3,000 in musical instruments for their school. And you can check out their incredible performance and video on the district Facebook page. The Everybody Deserves a Smile team wrapped up their deliveries with over 1,600 care packages that were delivered to people in need. This initiative united 21 schools to spread warmth, joy, and compassion. And of course, many thanks to everyone who donated their time and energy to this cause. Our students celebrated significant success at the North Island Regional Drama Festival. It was hosted by GP Danny Secondary, and the festival saw 8 schools participate in a variety of performances and workshops. Lastly, I want to acknowledge some of our Comox Valley wrestlers who made a strong start to their season at the Christmas Classic Tournament in Duncan. Our district had 26 wrestlers from 6 schools competing, and they brought home an impressive haul of medals, 3 gold, 7 silver, and 9 bronze. So great work by our wrestling team. And then as we wrap up this calendar year and we all head into a much-deserved winter break, I want to express my heartfelt gratitude for the hard work, dedication, and resilience of our staff and students. Collectively, each member of our learning community helps contribute to the success of our students and to the strength of our learning community. I hope that this break brings rest, a chance to recharge, and the opportunity to share time with loved ones. I want to thank you for all that you do. And I wish each of you a peaceful, joyful, and safe winter break. And I look forward to welcoming everyone back in the new year, ready to continue learning and growing together and taking advantage of the new opportunities that await us.
Thank you, Jeremy. And now we have Indigenous Education Teacher Liaison Committee PowerPoint presentation. Take it away, Joe.
Okay, I'm just going to screencast here.
I'm gonna scoot to the side.
I'm going to pass this off. I want to thank you very much for allowing us to present, and it's my great pleasure to co-present alongside 3 very powerful women that they will do most of the talking, gratefully. So Lelena, Janine, and Lynn, please come on up and take it away. And we'll pass this along to whoever goes next. I'm untrusted with this, so I'll say it.
Your name's first. So.
Yeah, good evening, good evening. It's real good to be here. Different structure for sure, but recognizing that we are guests here in the school board office. Uklas, Klakopika, Lalena Jules, Mamakna Empty, Heshkwi Aksup, Kinkwashtakam Aksup. My name is Klakopika. I also go by Lalena Jules. And I also shared with you in Nuu-chah-nulth language, Heshkwi Aksup. I am a woman from Heshkwi. Recognizing that I am a guest here in the Petlatch, the Ikes, and the Saflut and Sasitla territory. And really, I guess, excited to bring in old ways reframed in new ways to spaces like this. So I'm happy to be a part of such a dream team, and also really proud to speak Nuu-chah-nulth language at a board meeting tonight. Yeah. And we have more languages to share, just wait.
Bonjour Anin, Janine Nadijnakas, Anishinaabe Winzawanaba Wasaji, Wabanong Tutnawazi being Manitoba and Donji. My name is Abawasaji. I also go by Janine or Jeannie, as some of you may know me. I am Anishinaabe from Tutnawazi being Manitoba, Cree, Audenoch and Awichanuch, and Scottish, Irish, and Norwegian. and it's a pleasure to be here. I am curriculum support teacher for secondary for Indigenous education.
Hunilti Sabo-Zealand Swift. I'm from the Estela First Nation. It's in Sokoteen, Quesnel on the Fraser River. I have ancestors in the Sokoteen, like Estela is a Sokoteen nation, but I have, that's where the government just lets you register with one nation, but I have relations in all of the 6 Sokoteen nations in that area, as well as in the northern Secwepemc nations near Waynes Lake. That's where I grew up. Yeah, I'm really happy to be here, and I spoke a little bit of Sokoteen language with you, and just really happy to be here.
And we brought Joe.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. So we started the liaison committee about 10 years ago, and Gail Martindale, she was a colleague of mine, she just retired last year. She went to a finesse workshop and heard about this from Juanita Coltman from the Sea to Sky District. So she brought it back, the idea back to Bruce, and he went to the IEC, and we got it approved to start a liaison committee. And we'll go over the purpose a little bit later, but the idea was to be able to share information with the liaison committee, and then they could go and then share that back at their schools. So it started off in elementary schools first, and I think we did that for until about 6 years ago when secondary started, when Elena came onto the team. And we can talk again a little bit more about how it came together, but about 4 years ago, help me with the numbers, Elena, but the IEC sort of said that the funding should come from a district rather than from targeted funds. So Jeff Manning at the time, when he was acting superintendent, he supported the liaison committee with funds to keep it going. So that was really exciting. And it actually came, it sort of was almost going to die away. We thought it was not going to happen anymore, but many members of the liaison committee put forth their thinking and feelings about the committee, and those responses, those feedback responses convinced Jeff to continue funding it. So that was really exciting to hear. We had such a good response from our committee.
And we also started at a time of just letting schools, teachers coming along the ride with us and letting them know what Indigenous education, what services we can offer them. And we slowly slipped into resource-based, supporting with authentic resources. And then we kind of got into around the time of the courage to teach about things like residential school, and recognizing that residential school is things that happen to Indigenous folks. That's not the Indigenous education. And then our conversations have evolved, and now we are we are transitioning into the place where we're at. And so recognizing that in a quick 6 years, the way that the conversation has shifted has taken a lot of courage and a lot of leadership, but really a lot of people walking along, educators walking alongside each other to do this work together. Mm-hmm.
So, like Lillian was saying, the vision really changed over those 10 years. In the beginning, it was very, very resource-based. We would share resources and ideas, and then teachers would go back. But it's moved and morphed to this vision that we have up here, and especially this year, we've added place-based focus as to be very intentional about that. The things we're learning about, we want to focus from this place here, get out onto the land as much as we can, and think about the ways of being that existed here for a long time. So the communication and relationship building, still resource sharing, and supporting each other. For that communication, relationship building with each other, we take a lot of time with our team to get to know each other and make everybody feel really safe. And it's led to very safe and honest and open conversations with the team, and really to help support them to be able to go back to their schools and share, because it can be a bit of a lonely thing to do that, like as one person to go back to your school, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But we want them to feel really comfortable before they head back to the schools to share with them. and keep that connection between Indigenous education and school-based staffs. And we, not only do we, there's a reciprocity in the whole process as well. It's not just us sharing, it comes from the team. The whole team comes together, shares ideas, we discuss it, talk about it. Topics come up such as like Indigenous Peoples Day, like you talk about doing things in a good way together. And it's not just one person left on their own to figure out those ideas as a teamwork. And then really connecting to our district strategic plan as well. We want to focus on that as well this year once it becomes clear to everybody with the decolonizing and indigenizing and focusing on our professional learning standards, our teaching standards.
And we're always updating. This is growing a lot. Last year we focused a lot on DRPA, recognizing that we had the Indigenous focus mandated grad credits come down, and we wanted to do that in a multifaceted, good way, recognizing that not all teachers that are teaching or delivering this course have a background and a strong understanding about how to deliver these rich, dynamic courses in a way that all students deserve to receive the curriculum, the teachings, in a way that talked about, I keep looking at this art piece that's up on the wall, and the reason why I want to kind of pivot a little bit towards that is because the reason why that got presented to the board is our teacher was working on with her students about the TRC 94 calls to action, and then she was talking about her ideas, and then she didn't want to appropriate any art or things like that, and then so with lots of back and forth dialogue to come up with this project called Hope and Love Behind 94. But the reason why the courage came from this is we happened to be having a liaison committee meeting that day at Highland, and so we were taking a little bit of a tour, and she was working on this right then, and we said, you gotta share this with other people, you gotta, like, and so she just took a moment and educated all of us at that liaison committee on the spot about this project, and it just grew, and she connected with a local knowledge holder and language holder to get the I Do Some Word for Family, and there's a whole write-up and a whole lesson series that came in connection with the liaison committee meeting with that piece that's sitting right there on the wall. I'm sorry to pivot so far away, but
No.
If we take any time, we'll take it from the voices.
Oh, no, it was a great example, I like that, yeah.
So with the land-based focused learning, I was privileged enough to be a part of the liaison as an educator, not as somebody who was facilitating. And so it was an amazing opportunity for myself to be able to bring in my passion of land-based learning. And so having Lelena host the secondary liaison meetings and having educators come in with their passion, but to be able to take that passion and to be able to really focus it on the land and where we are and bring those teachings in, I think that's where the superpower comes from these two amazing people here, and that they are able to take what a teacher brings in or an educator brings in and really focus it in with that intention. And so with this, we were very intentional with what we do on the land around this beautiful valley. So one of the pieces that has been worked on is the Pentlatch Village site tours and how to get more students out, how to get more educators comfortable talking about what is there. And because they're not all happy conversations, they're not all conversations that people feel safe in having those conversations. So that's why I feel that it's so important to have people that can facilitate those safe spaces for educators with this liaison. Also with the fish trap learning has been going on for years now, and it's fluid and growing, and the more that we know, the more that we can share. And so I think that's been very important. The plant walks is my by far my favorite, and so being able to bring in Indigenous knowledge of plants and knowing that this land has been caretaken for thousands of years, and what we might not see as being gardens or farms or things that have been maintained have been maintained for so long. So being able to bring in those perspectives, and I think it enriches teachers' field trips. I think it enriches just their perspective in getting students out of the classroom just to go read a book out in that area, especially our schools are in such beautiful parts of the district. With our conversations, I think that everything that we do, we try to bring that into our practice, and the liaison, I personally have seen the growth in so many people and feeling more brave in their conversations on how they are incorporating in Indigenous ways of knowing and being, and being confident in how they're doing that, which is amazing. And then with intergenerational learning and teaching, of course, we know that modeling older students with younger students or bringing in knowledge holders from the community, how important that is, and being able to share opportunities like that at the liaison has been another superpower.
Yeah, and an opportunity opens up for the decolonizing part is when we're learning the richness of something like the ancient Pentlatch Village, how you can incorporate the curriculum that you're teaching into that rather than the other way around that's been happening for so long. And so we get an opportunity to align with the strategic plan in not only just simply indigenizing, but also decolonizing our pedagogy and our practice through role modeling.
So we come together about 4 times a year to center Indigenous ways of knowing and being, and really kind of what we've already talked about, but being able to model that with our group that's there, be really explicit about it. We're not just doing it, we try to be super explicit about what we're actually doing. Teachers are coming from all over the district, they're rushing from their schools, they've had to get a TOC ready, they're coming at lunchtime and switching over, and then they just need like a few minutes to relax. So we start everything in a good way all the time. It feels really good on my part, where I know that when they tell me they feel safe and happy to be there and they want to keep coming back. We talked a little bit about this, but wherever we can, we bring knowledge holders to come and share and learn. We get opportunities to sit down with our knowledge holders a lot, but any chance that we can have them come to our meetings, like for example, we had Jessie and Keisha Everson come last time and circle with them. And I think we talked a little bit about this already, but we want to do this in connection with our strategic plan, BC Professional Teacher Standards number 9. So specifically number 9 is really focused on Indigenous learning and teaching, but it's throughout every point in our teaching standards. And we really model the First Peoples principles of learning. We spelled principles wrong.
I'll take it on.
Joe's fault. And DRIPA, LEA, and our, yeah, and I don't know who put that in there.
We blame it on Joe.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And this was an example last May, where this is actually the first time that Elaine and I put our groups together, the elementary and secondary, so it was really nice to have the whole group together. We had a big circle down at Comox Marina Park, and then Corey, you can see Corey in the front center there in the orange, Corey Frank, and he made us lunch and brought it for us to, so we could all sit together and have lunch. It was really beautiful. And we learned about fish traps in the morning or afternoon, can't remember. Depending on the tide.
We were on the land in the morning and then Corey shared in the afternoon. Yeah.
All right, so I'll borrow the clicker if you trust me. Tough act to follow. So what I'd like to just say, I just have 2 slides here. I remember seeing and hearing about this type of work happening after an equity scan. Quite often you'd have people that would say, teachers are feeling insecure about making a mistake. And I suspect that when we do our scan here, there's still going to be some teachers and some educators that feel uncomfortable. And we found that this was one of those strategies that were employed by many districts. I can think of 7 districts. Now, one of the drawbacks that is that similar to having one Indigenous support worker at a school is that you can look at this like, oh, you're going to be my go-to person for this, okay? And what we really wanted as a group was to really recognize work and and so to bring everybody in, I think what my job really is to elevate what's going on here. So on November the 14th, we had a meeting where we did something similar. I didn't mess up on any of the slides. And they were, and we were presenting with all PVP on November 14th at a learning and connecting meeting. And it was just, these were the 4 questions that we had that we were asking them, right? Please, when you're doing this work, and the other thing that I should mention is that the moving testimonials of those teachers, we had pages and pages of them, and we had pre-reading for all PVP folks to read over, and then what we wanted them to do is read through and find a couple sentences that really like resonate with what you see as some of the design principles in our strategic plan. So they did that work, they shared that out, and during the sharing, they sort of like brought it out to this slide before it even came, where they were saying, well, this feels a lot like individual work. What about the collective work? I'm like, thanks very much, unnamed principal and another unnamed principal for bringing that up, because this is what we were hoping to do. What we want to do is elevate, so provide that space and time for your teacher liaisons to share that valuable information. If you value it in your staff meetings, it's seen as valuable. If you stick it at the end, that's why I've got elevate the importance of this by placing this at the beginning of the meetings. So thank you very much for placing us at the beginning and allowing us to have the time. Often at the end of meetings, things get sloughed off and it's not seen as important. So thank you for doing that with us here today. Ensure that the staff understand that the links, as we've already talked about here. And then very importantly, because I think Lelena spoke about this already, with that idea of the resource piece. You have to be careful, because a lot of us, when we're on those opening journeys of understanding Indigenous, trying to embed Indigenous ways of knowledge into our practice, we look at it like it's a resource. Where is the Blackline Master for this? Where's the handouts? Give me the checkbox activity, and we really need to talk about the why. And so this is an opportunity for us to do that, so to be able to do that work. And I'm really thrilled to be able to continue to support this and to elevate that work, and that our principals are then know that there's an expectation that at all staff meetings, when there are materials to share, that they elevate their Indigenous teacher liaison, and that it's not going to feel like a lonely place, but that they have a whole team, and that hopefully the entire staff feels competent to ask these questions. That's it for me.
I think one of the important things for me when I look at the model of the Indigenous Liaison Committee is that we're helping to create that safety piece. I know we've mentioned that quite a bit, but when we talk about safety in conversations about Indigenous content, when we talk about safety of students being proud and educators being proud of their ancestry in the schools, of wearing Indigenous clothing, of all of these pieces, it's about being brave and courageous, and that's what these teachers are doing when they come to the liaison. They're being brave and courageous to help create those safe spaces in their classrooms. But also, like Joe just said, at staff meetings, when you're sharing out with your own coworkers, how can you help create that brave and courageous space there so that this type of conversation, when we're talking about Indigenous ways of knowing and being, that there is safety in those spaces for those conversations to the best of our ability. You're never going to be 100% safe, but it is brave and courageous spaces. And I think that that's what, one of the takeaways that I take from our liaison meetings is that sense of safety, the sense of courage that those educators have when they leave the teacher liaison to go back into their schools and have these conversations and help create that safety for their students. So it's a trickle-down effect as well.
Mm-hmm. And not only while we're doing that, we are allowing Indigenous students to see themselves reflected in the learning, the curriculum, the ways of doing things, but also all students being fully educated by the time they leave grade 12.
And I really appreciate the elevation with the principals and vice principals, because everything that we share sometimes isn't always, not everything, it isn't always easy to sort of take on a checklist of things that we have shared, and it's what a way of being. So it's not always easy to translate that into going to a staff meeting. So it's really appreciate the piece of being able to speak to the PVPs and get that support started.
Just some examples of things that are guiding our work. We forgot to put the Braiding Sweetgrass Junior edition. Jeannie gifted all the teachers it early enough in the year to be kind of like a framework when we're doing the work and the learning on the land. Yeah, it's a beautifully written book. Yeah, and then always recognizing why we're doing this work, thinking about UNDRIP and the Truth and Reconciliation Commission and those that are doing the work on behalf of us and those that have been doing the work before us, and recognize even grounds. It's not to propel us forward or those sorts of things, or to have an advantage above other things. This is just the work to get us to this level. So I'm real excited that when we achieve these basic human rights, where we can go, the ones that are in the class right now and the ones that are yet coming into class, when they're receiving a holistic education like this, what magic they can bring to the profession of educators and things like that. Mm-hmm.
Does anybody have any questions for our team? I mean, I know I do, but I don't want to be the. Does anybody have any questions? Okay. My question is regarding Standard 9, and I know that that is part of our educators' requirements in teaching, and I'm just curious about the how that is the how. How are we responsible for Standard 9? What does that look like? And is that something that does the principal have ownership over that being demonstrated in the school? Just curious about Standard 9.
You're looking at me?
The first part I want to share about Standard 9 is the one word value. Valuing this knowledge system, valuing these ways of knowing and being, valuing the voice of Indigenous folks, valuing the rich curriculum that is inclusive of Indigenous ways of knowing and being, that sometimes when we don't have enough time to get through the whole course, that's the part that's missed. But also valuing ways that things are so interactive, valuing the place that we're on, valuing a whole perspective that can put us in a reciprocal relationship, but not only just in our learning or relationship with each other, but the actual place where we call home and where we're learning and things like that. That's the part that really stands out to me for when we're thinking about professional standard number 9, because sometimes you can engage in conversation and you can talk about, oh yes, LaHal can go with math and all these sorts of things, and those sort of like add on to the linear way of doing things. But when you start to value, you start to get real curious about, oh, what else does LaHal mean? LaHal also means songs and identity, and who has the rights to sing these songs, why was LaHal played, where was LaHal played? You know, it starts to open up that whole part, and when those conversations are happening and when the curiosity gets sparked, you know that it's being valued. Yeah.
Yeah, and just briefly, I would say it's incumbent upon all of us to understand those standards, whether you're a principal or a teacher or anyone. And I would just say, you know, I've been in meetings this fall with our partners, with you, Sean, and with Jackie, and we're in complete alignment of the understanding is the collective responsibility for us all to know what those standards are and to admit that there is a ways for us to go to fully embodying what those are and working together as partners and understanding that we're all on different parts on the journey.
Thank you. I know Jerry would like to speak to this, and I guess just a response to that would be, it's amazing that one educator from each school comes to you, but wouldn't it be wonderful if every educator had an opportunity that was perhaps more firsthand, ongoing, and consistent. Over to you, Chair.
Thank you. I think it was spoken to how I was intending to, but I do just want to make a comment. First of all, I want to thank you for the gift of sharing language tonight in this space. It's meaningful and appreciated. I specifically wanted to acknowledge, I've been in our opportunity to be present with Chetty, who's in the back, not presenting, but is here, with Lynn, with Jeannie, and with Elena. In various places, I've sat in circle, I've had the opportunity to witness in ceremony, I've watched them facilitate, and it's just a privilege in a public setting to be able to acknowledge your wisdom, your grace, and your support of our work to decolonize. And I just wanted to really honor and acknowledge the way in which you do your work. You do your work in a good way, and it's invitational. And I would also just add that piece around the fact that there is a distinction between spaces that are safe and spaces that are safe but need to be uncomfortable. And we cannot continue to be comfortable and do the work that needs to be done on behalf of the community and students whom we serve, and I'm so grateful for your leadership in this work. So thank all four of you, even though Chetty's way in the back. But yeah, it is truly humbling to be able to be present when you are presenting and when we have the opportunity to learn from you.
Okay, that was amazing. I hope to hear more. Next is our international program overview. There's a briefing note. Is Mr. Fine?
I will speak briefly to the briefing note. So it's on pages 17 and 18 of the board package. We've had the opportunity, I believe, for several consecutive years to have international do a presentation. So this year we've just asked for kind of a summary of some of the highlight pieces. And I would just point out that this year there's 268 international students in our district for a total FTE of 201. I know that in our district, as we really explore some of the impacts and ramifications of growth in our schools, that we are probably kind of at the peak of our international program in terms of numbers of students, and that we'll have to continue to monitor that. It's actually, we're not only full in our schools, but we're also pretty at capacity within our community in terms of viable homestays for our international students. So it's a really positive program. I would just add that those 268 students who come to our community often model what we'd love to see all students do, which is taking part in every possible activity and opportunity, not only that schools provide, but that this beautiful community provides. And so there is a multicultural component that they add to our schools, which is really valuable, and that's the kind of the summary of that briefing note.
Thank you very much. There is a motion on the table. Would somebody like to motion? Christy?
The Board of Education of School District Number 71 Comox Valley received the International Program Overview Briefing Note dated December 17th, 2024 as presented.
Thank you, Chelsea, for seconding that motion. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. Moving to business services, we have the 2023-24 Statement on Financial Information. Over to you, Carrie.
So on page 19 through to 90 is the Statement of Financial Information. But just going to page 19, you have the briefing note that explains that the SOFI report is done in accordance with the Financial Information Act. Each school board is required to prepare a report of financial information for each fiscal year. And included in the report are the two schedules, the one being the schedule for remuneration and expenses, that lists all payments made to trustees and employees with remuneration exceeding $75,000. And then the schedule for suppliers of goods and services that lists payments made to suppliers that is in excess of $25,000. And then just to note that the SOFI report is part of our annual audited financial statements.
Great, thank you very much. Are there any questions? Christine?
Yeah, I wanted to know if, you could elaborate a little bit on a couple of, if you go to page 78, on our remuneration and expenses. I just was hoping you could maybe shed a bit of light on, some expenses that jumped out to me. One of them, was, senior manager of ISP for $57,829.55. And then the other one was, our principal of international studies at $85,000. And I wondered if you could elaborate a little bit on that, because those numbers seem quite a bit larger expenses than all of the other principals, vice principals, and even our associates. So I wanted to just find out a little bit more about where that money was going, because it just kind of jumped out at me.
I just presented on the international student program, so I may as well answer that question. So both of those two positions, a significant component and responsibility in their role is the international recruitment trips. And so what you're seeing there is a disproportionate expense, but it's based on a role that's very unique within the system. So those are those international trips that are for recruiting and connecting with agents that send students to our schools.
Okay, and so now with us being at our maximum, is that something that we might see a reduction in? It's just, I look at those and I see another teacher possibly, or another support staff member. And so just wondering where we, balance that out a little bit.
It's possible. I would just point to all of the salaries that are connected to and expenses connected to the international program are paid for through revenues that are generated through the international students program. So while those costs look quite extensive, they are not coming out of the operational budget. Those are coming from revenues that are generated by the trips themselves.
Any more questions? Would somebody like to move the motion?
Sorry.
Great.
I will, sorry. Pete. I will motion that the Board of Education School District 71 Comox Valley receive the statement of financial information for the fiscal year and June 30th, 2024 as presented.
Thank you, Christine. Seconding. Any discussion? All in favor? And the motion is carried. And next we have the Food Advisory Committee meeting, December 4th, verbal update. Carrie.
So just a quick verbal update to let you know it's exciting that the first Food Advisory Committee was held on December 4th and that there were 11 members in attendance. The committee has around 18 members in total, including recently the addition of 3 students, which is just amazing. So there will be student voice on the committee. The first meeting, there was an extensive discussion. It went to around an hour and a half, a little bit past that. There were representatives from 3 community school societies, CUPE, CDTA, BCPP, I don't think that was quite meant to be said that way, I'm just as I'm looking at my notes. Our local PVP association, DPAC, VHA, and trustee. And the committee followed a flexible agenda, dedicating much of the time to introductions and addressing questions about the current school food systems and the specifics of the Feeding Futures Fund. They were engaged, they were passionate. I'm looking at Shannon because I know you were there. You might want to add a little bit more when we get to the discussion. And then they're talking about what kind of a framework will be built for the committee to do their works. That's probably about it.
It was a great summary. It was very dynamic and engaged. Still, a good number in attendance and yeah, a lot of real interest in developing a 5-year plan that brings in a lot of different aspects of the strategic plan and our vision for the future for the district.
Oh. Awesome, thank you very much, Carrie. And you are also next on the agenda with transition of Indigenous education costs to the operating budget.
Okay, if we can move us to page 91 in our agenda package. The briefing note outlines the plan to transition to move costs from the targeted funding that we receive that would include the position of district principal and our elder and residence program. And the idea is to move those expenses into our operating budget over a period of 3 years, starting next year and doing it a third at a time. So the total costs are around $300,000, and it would be 100 in the first year, 200 in the second, and then the full 300 by the year 2027 and 2028. The motion was passed by our board, but this is being moved to our public meeting so that it can be shared. There was a slight delay in doing that as we needed to have time to share that with our IEC. So it's very exciting.
Thank you. Any questions? There is a motion on the table regarding that briefing note. Christie?
That the Board of Education of School District Number 71 Comox Valley receive the transition of Indigenous education costs to the operating budget briefing note dated December 17th, 2024 as presented.
Shannon seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? And the motion's carried. And now we have a staffing survey briefing note. Is that you as well, Carrie?
I will share that as well. So our dynamic and passionate Director of Human Resources, Sheila Powell, spoke some time ago about doing a survey after we went through the spring staffing process. So they went forward, they did the survey, and this provides the board with some high-level background around the feedback that was received. I think it's really positive to note that we had 197 employees that responded to the survey. I think that's really positive. That's hard to get people to, as we know, respond to those. The positive feedback was around clear and efficient communication and a great appreciation for the efforts of our HR team. There were some concerns shared that are listed in the briefing note. And just to say that HR will take all of that into consideration as we move into this next staffing process.
Thank you. Any comments or questions?
I'm a little bit curious about how surveys are presented. Is it like an email with the expectation that the time is spent individually, or are these types of surveys brought through staff meetings with dedicated time to respond, or?
I believe this one was sent out, and I'm not sure that there was dedicated time. I think it's the first survey that was done with regards to a staffing process that I'm aware of, although I've only been here a short time. Looking at our superintendent to see if he has anything to add on that. I would imagine that some staff probably did do it during work time, but there wasn't anything that was defined around that.
It's great to get feedback.
And I think it's really commendable that the HR department put themselves on the line like that.
Mhm.
How amazing. We want to know what you feel, what you feel strongly about, so.
Just that belief in continuous
Yes.
improvement.
Yes, yeah, amazing. There is a motion on the table. Jen?
Board of Education School District number 71, Comox Valley received the staffing survey briefing note dated December 17, 2024 as presented.
Do we have a second, Christine? And any discussion? Yes.
I just state, I know we said 197, but just that I've only been on this board for 2 years, but I remember some personnel, related matters that early on didn't have as much response. So I just wanted to share that it's wonderful to see, people sharing, what's working, where there needs to be work done, and I just think that's great to see that change in a short time that I've been here. So,
Thank you.
yeah, good to go.
All in favor? Motion is carried. And this next section has been put on the January 9th agenda, which was the 9B. There we are, yes, I had to go back 2 pages to find the 9. So 9B, we will put that on hold for the next meeting. Which moves us to number 10. Right, yes, the board standing committee reports. From the open committee of the whole, there is none. From the ad hoc committee, there is none, but the next ad hoc policy committee meeting is Wednesday, January 8th, 2025, 4 to 5:30 p.m. Moving into board business, we have a trustee report on gender-based violence committee, Shannon Aldiger. Would you like to speak to that?
Yeah, thanks. So we have just held our 4th meeting earlier this month. And to date, we have embarked on meeting with various community-based organizations to solicit sort of their experiences dealing with youth in this issue, and generally with the question, what can we be doing to better support the students and also staff who we serve. We've met with the Comox Valley Transition Society, the community-based victim services, police-based victim services, the Foundry, the Link, and AIDS Vancouver Island. We're also reaching out and meeting with representatives of the Comox Valley Community Justice Center, Pride Comox Valley, and Indigenous Women's Sharing Society. The intention is to synthesize the gathered information and share it as part of our report. We've also continued discussions about opportunities for student voice within our committee, and that the plan is to facilitate a conversation through the district's student voice session that's going to be held in February, and also reaching out to, hoping to reach out to other student groups as well. We've also talked about how to include just other voices in our work beyond just the committee itself, including setting up a general survey to create an opportunity for staff and parents and community to provide feedback, suggestions, ideas that they might have. One of the questions that came up was whether an email survey would be something that people would respond to if their name's attached, and is there a way that we might be able to allow an opportunity that allows for some anonymity. So that's something that I'll talk to Julie about. And then we've also set up meetings to meet with all of the secondary school counselors as one group, all of the elementary school counselors as a second group, and all of the youth and family workers as a third group. And those meetings will happen in January and February, again, to get their feedback on ideas as to how to provide better support for the students and staff that we support. We have looked at a response flow chart that has been developed by Inclusive Education to provide some feedback and further ideas on that. It's been wonderful to have Tara Ryan, District VP of Inclusive Education in Carmel, Minnesota, join us for the meetings. We are continuing our discussions about the development of other resources, best practices, and a sample policy that we are still working on as well. It's a possible recommendation for our final report, and the next committee meeting is January 15th, and we expect we'll have a number more. Still with the hope that we'll have a report sometime next year.
Thank you so much. That was a very thorough report. I want to go. B is preliminary discussion of BCSTA motions for AGM. Verbal report. Shannon?
Yeah, so as the representative for the BCSTA on our board, one of the responsibilities that falls to me is to bring forth this conversation on a preliminary basis. The AGM comes up, of course, in April each year, but the motion deadlines come up in February. And there are two types of motions. One are special resolutions or motions that impact like the governance of the BCSTA either through their own policies and procedures or committee work, and those motions are generally required to be brought forth fairly early in February. And then just ordinary motions about the nature of the advocacy work that we're looking for the BCSTA to do generally comes a couple of weeks later in February, but often before our last February board meeting where we can pass a motion to bring a motion to the BCSTA. So in order for us to make the timing work, we essentially need to be in a position to have a motion on the table for board consideration at our January meeting to pass there, or alternatively what we've ended up doing in past years is tacking it on to another meeting that we have in February, but that's, it's less predictable, it's less transparent. So the idea is for today, just raise the issue, know that it's coming up for our January meeting, and if there are issues that people are interested in bringing forward as motions, that now's the time. Now's the time that we need to start thinking about it and moving forward.
Chelsea?
This isn't specific to what I would bring forward right now, but one thing now, again, 2 years in, that I'm finding a gap for myself at least, is that I don't always follow up on, or I don't feel like I know where the motion 2 years ago perhaps is, or the other district's motions either. And sometimes I feel that perhaps it would be beneficial of us to sort of see too sort of where some of those went, or if they fell off, and if they did, perhaps why, like whether we need to reword something and see if it will reach further. Anyways, I just thought that might be a sort of continuous approach for us to consider as we come to these conversations, yearly.
And we have brought motions in the last 2 years.
Right.
This is a good opportunity every year to make our voices count.
For sure. Awesome.
So I'm wondering, Shannon, if this is something that we could bring to the January committee in the hall prior to the board meeting, so that we could have some time as a team to talk about what those priorities are for us.
Yeah, right. That's a great idea.
If I may, it should probably also come to then the board meeting in January, because if you are actually passing any motions to bring forward, that would be the meeting where you can pass motions.
Right. That's for both.
Yes.
at least this gives us a space, a working space to put it together. Okay, awesome. Now, normally I would have a report from the IEC, but the IEC met, when the, deadline was for all board materials. So again, the timing is not quite right. There was no meeting in November. So I'm hoping that for January, they will align. That would be amazing. And then I will attach the December's report to that one. Okay. There is no board correspondence. Now it is question period. And oh my goodness, did you see the time? What is happening? Okay, do we have any questions online, Josh? No? And what about from our guests today? Okay, you guys are making it so easy on me.
Still not 8 o'clock.
No! It's like,
Wow.
All right, well, would somebody like to put forward the motion? Yes, Christie.
Motion that the Board of Education of School District Number 71 Comox Valley adjourn this meeting.
Do we have a seconder to that motion? Any discussion? All those in favor?